Hello, everyone. We're just about to start our Hangout on Air. My name is Richard Ashe, and today we'll be discussing the launch of the ability to sell Chrome device management licenses via the Reseller Console. And we're launching this in the US as well as India and Australia. And during the session, everyone will be muted since this will be a Hangout on Air. However, you can ask questions via the chat window. And so just throughout the presentation, feel free to ask questions. At the very end, I'll address those questions via chat. Everyone will be muted by default. So the purpose of today is to talk about what's happening in the market in terms of Chrome for Work adoption. Talk about the opportunities where partners can make money selling Chrome devices, and then talked a little bit about what we're going to be doing with the launch of the capability in the Reseller Console, this feature in the Reseller Console to sell Chrome device management licenses, and address any of your questions. So in my experience with Google, I've been at Google now for over 6 years, the last 2 in the US, and I spent my first 4 years working at Google in Singapore. I had a lot of exposure to partners and to customers in Australia and India and across Southeast Asia, across Greater China, in Korea, and now I've also seen what's happened in the U.S. So I've got a good opportunity to see how the markets have developed, and what we observed, particularly with Chrome devices, is that this product started off really as a question mark coming back at its initial launch. In other words, the market was highly questioning whether this was going to be successful. And they said, well, maybe in education, don't really see the opportunity in work. And in general, there's some features that need to be developed further or added that otherwise this is just not going to be a viable product. And that was coming back, when it was initially launched, back when it was a CR48, it's going back a number of years ago. And then within a few short years, a very short period of time, Chrome devices became the #1 device in education. So in 2014, it was the #1 device in K-12 education in the U.S. 2015, it was the #1 device again. It became 51% of the market in the U.S. We've seen massive growth globally, and just 2 weeks ago, we announced that Chrome devices outsold Apple devices across all product categories globally. So this is looking at Chrome devices versus Apple in education and work, consumer, and that's an amazing accomplishment considering where we came from. And we're not just seeing it in education anymore. We're seeing this in work as well. So just in Chrome for Work over the last 4 years, we've seen 140% combined annual growth rate. And just year over year from last year, 50% growth rate. So year-on-year growth, rather. So the other thing is we're seeing this across all segments. And so for those of you in the audience, many of you are selling apps today, but you might not be selling Chrome devices. And when you talk to a typical customer, what you're going to find is that while 30% of their spend is going to be in devices, according to Gartner's 2016 forecast, it's roughly what we're going to see in a typical spend for any company you work with. However, that's a little bit deceptive, because if you're not selling devices, you're also missing out on a significant amount of services revenue. Because some of this services business, this 45% services business, directly attached to some sort of device purchase. And the services are specialized for that device, of course. When we look at the use of Chromebooks, not just for a primary device, but also for digital signage, for kiosk, and all the various use cases, you'll see there's lots of service revenue to be gained. So when the typical feedback you get from a services partner, because they're used to the margins related to, let's say, app services, they'll look at the device and say, well, that's just a low-margin business. So how are you going to make money off devices? Given the fact that you will not make a lot of money off the device itself, where are you going to make up in terms of having a profitable business? So where's the money in devices, how to build a service business, and then how to build a proposal. So with Chrome devices, yes, you'll sell the devices. That could be a Chrome Bit, Chrome Base, Chromebox, or it could be Chromebox for meetings. And with that, you'll sell device management, with which, unlike apps where you're just going to be selling the subscription plus any additional add-ons such as Vault, with additional drive storage, or with Chrome devices, you'll be selling an additional device management license, and in addition to that, you'll be selling partner services. This could include deployment services, third-party integration support, pretty similar to what you do with apps. And in terms of device management, it'll be this now is you have the ability to sell that through the Reseller Console, which previously you did not have the ability to do that. Now you can. So just the way you provision apps users, you'll be able to do the same thing with the device management licenses. And this is really important because that'll just make it a lot easier for you to provision partners, also make it easier for you to provide managed services. And in addition to that, you'll also be able to sell apps and content. What we mean by that is it's not just Google Apps or sort of third-party SaaS. It actually might be content in terms of content that you design, or perhaps IP that you offer to your customers, particularly when you look at opportunities in signage and kiosks. And we'll describe that in more detail as we go along. Now, when you look at a customer who buys, has been buying PCs, and compare that to what they will need when they buy a Chromebook, well, with a PC, of course, they'll buy the device, they'll buy some sort of management software or service for that device, such as enterprise management, mobility management service or something like that. And they'll have white glove service. That means the ability, service to prep the device, to etch it and asset tag it. We'll talk about more of that in a moment. They'll have add-on services like deployment, consulting services, and managed services, infrastructure services like a site survey, professional services, and you'll also have add-on hardware and software. The only thing that you won't sell when you sell Chromebooks is arguably antivirus and encryption software, because that security, that capability is really built into the Chrome operating system. But everything else you'll be able to sell. So while people think that, well, with Chromebooks, it's really eating into my margins, sure, the device is going to be less expensive, but you're not really going to make a lot of money off the device anyway, even if you're selling a PC. It's really on these additional services that you're going to make your money, and the only gap really between Chromebook and a typical PC sale is simply that antivirus encryption capability, because it's really unnecessary when you get a Chromebook. So what are you going to, when you're selling a Chromebook, you're going to sell white glove preparation or just white glove service. With white glove, what that means is that a third party, normally you'll do this through a distributor, or you might have to do this in-house if you're planning to have a Chromebook business at scale. That means that you'll have someone in a warehouse, typically low-level technician. It's not really an advanced skill. You could teach someone how to do white glove in about 20 minutes. And they'll need to go through a series of steps to enroll the device, configure it to the Wi-Fi, set up the network, then they'll asset tag it and etch it, and then bundle it with peripherals. And in consulting and employment services, it's going to be very, very similar to what you're doing with apps today. The difference is that there'll be a learning curve in terms of understanding how Chrome device management works, as well as understanding the best practices associated with that for the different use cases. But the people that today are implementing Google Apps for work could also be the same consultants that implement Chrome devices and Chrome device management. You just need to make sure that they get the right training so that they'll have the ability to do that. But really, it's not going to be a specialist skill set necessarily. You'll be able to really skill up the existing staff that you have. Now, there's an interesting opportunity, particularly around signage and kiosks, to design content and design apps. So that could be content you design as a one-off, some sort of custom app development, or it could just be the content in a digital sign. Or that could be reusable IP. In other words, something that you sell to a customer and then you keep the rights to that, so you can sell that as a solution to other customers. And then there could be third-party content management services, particularly around digital signs as well as kiosks again. where you will sell them the either software that they install locally or software as a service to allow them to manage the content on that sign or on the kiosk. Now, infrastructure development, the opportunity there you'll find is that you'll have companies that buy Chromebooks or Chrome devices that are typically they're either adding devices and increasing usage in areas where they already had devices. So you'll have everyone, let's say, already has an existing device, you're not replacing that. However, because you're implementing Chromebox for meetings, now you have you're going to have a bigger need for bandwidth. You'll need to expand bandwidth to accommodate for the Chrome devices for meetings. And then if you're, let's say, extending usage to, let's say, their warehouse, and this is previously where they really didn't need to have Wi-Fi at all because they had very few devices. Now you might set up access points throughout the warehouse so that they can have perhaps devices used for shared employee devices for the warehouse staff, for example. So when you have for infrastructure development opportunities, you'll do a site survey. You might end up providing additional access points, hardware and software upgrades, as well as deployment services. In terms of ongoing support and managed services, this will be very similar to what you're doing with apps today, managing their support tickets, doing break fix, and maybe fully providing outsourced, being their sort of IT outsource and providing a full managed service. One of the differences with what you're doing today with apps is lifecycle management. In other words, where you're managing the device from the time you initially deploy it all the way to repairs and refurbishment to potentially helping them recycle devices. So that's an additional service that you can either provide in-house or potentially outsource. And finally, there'll be add-on hardware peripherals, everything you'd expect from selling a device for work. But in addition to that, it could be things like a connection to a point-of-sale system, or it could be a connection for a camera, for a digital sign that also includes some sort of photo taking capability. So there could be additional peripherals and hardware that you sell that you're not used to selling with Google Apps. And then finally, for meeting room services, the opportunity there is to not only sell the Chromebox for meetings, but also to so you could sell the bundle. Of course, with that you will often sell the screen. But in addition to that, there's the opportunity to help them design the conference room, help them install the hardware, and also look at the acoustics and the lighting. And to do that, you either have that skill set today, or you might be outsourcing that through a third party. So typically that'll be someone who specializes in AV. So they're already installing these sorts of systems already. And with digital signage, for those sorts of opportunities, so let's say you're going into airport or you're going into a retail shop where they're using that for promotions, and or airport obviously for schedules, potentially, and you might help them develop the content, or they typically have that content already. You might provide a content management service, and of course installing the digital sign itself. And for kiosk, there will be a similar opportunity in terms of installation and potentially even building content for them, designing apps. So for example, if you had an airport that was developing a kiosk, they might have to develop a new app for that, and you might have to help them design the housing, build the customer enclosure, as you can see with these customer enclosures in this airport, and then there'll be potentially as well integration with their ticketing system in this case, and also infrastructure development to help build out their Wi-Fi capacity for that area. So how to build a service business, and what we mean when we talk about this is think about these opportunities where you might have an existing hardware reseller, let's say a pure play hardware reseller, where all they do is sell devices. So they're very familiar with Chrome devices, but maybe they don't necessarily have the services in place. And so you might have the opportunity to go back to back with that partner. Because when you think about the typical partners you have in the market, well, we do have partners that are sort of these pure play hardware partners, and many of the people on this call will be app service partners, the opportunity here is to really be the best of both worlds, and potentially that'll be through some sort of back-to-back partnership. Some of you may decide to build a Chrome business at scale, and even if you do, there still might be back-to-back partnership opportunities, as you might find that there's hardware partners will find the deal and close the deal, but then they don't have the services to fulfill completely. And so you might see opportunities there to partner with organizations like that. And when you're working with them, you need to realize if you're working with a pure play hardware reseller, they are not necessarily going to have the right people to sell services. So they're not going to necessarily, for example, have a solution architect who can help work with a customer to deeply understand their needs, both from a business and a technical standpoint, to find the solution and build a proposal that'll fit that need in sort of a pre-sales capacity, nor will they have the post-sales consultants to deliver the solution. And they might not even know what sort of people they would need to hire if they even did want to build that capacity within internally. So you have the opportunity to help fill in that gap in their capabilities from the pre-sales and post-sales capability. And that partnership could be a situation where you are the prime partner, or they could be prime. You could find that you might be, while you're in this back-to-back partnership, maybe you subcontract out parts of the work. Perfect example would be with Chrome devices for meetings. A lot of partners will probably outsource the AV work because that's just not part of your existing portfolio, nor do you necessarily want to build that service in-house, perhaps. And in some cases, you'll find that partners that you work with, like a hardware reseller, will fully outsource services. And in this case, they'll just take the hardware business and you do everything else, including booking the Chrome device management license, as well as all the other services related to that particular opportunity. And when you're working with these partners, what you often find, you might need to coach them on structure. And what we mean by that is you might need to help guide them on how to set up their business to sell services. Well, they might just sell services as a one-off. If they really want to get serious about working with you, they might not need to hire an overlay specialist, someone who just knows services and works in tandem with their staff to be that sort of product champion, or the service champion, rather. They might have to hire dedicated reps who just sell services because they have a team that's going to be really selling hardware at volume and are not necessarily going to want to invest the time it's going to require to have a more detailed conversation, typically a longer sales cycle to close a custom service opportunity. And in some cases, that might be a hybrid model as well. What you'll find is you might find an opportunity to really be that service sales, sort of be that overlay specialist for them. In other words, you might even have an opportunity to have one of your agents, one of your sales reps, sit in-house at this hardware reseller's office and sort of be the champion internally for them. And we've seen a lot of partners work with various models as they work with bigger players in the market that can compete at scale in the hardware business, but don't necessarily have your specialist service capabilities. And lastly, what you'll find is these partners that you work with might not have the systems and processes. So there might be an opportunity there, again, for you to coach them. I've seen partners work with others to develop sort of a retainer relationship where they're paid to coach a pure play hardware reseller on how to structure their business, from both systems and processes, including how their CRM system is set up, the processes related to how they book a deal, all the way through to how do they manage risk in a services business and make sure that they have a review process for managing bids. And I've seen service-oriented partners actually do this, sort of help partners set up a consulting business for a fee. And so there might be an opportunity to have a very strategic partnership with a much larger business to potentially help get their service business off the ground. There's a variety of different ways for you to approach that. So that's an opportunity in and of itself. It's just sort of working with these pure-play partners on some sort of back-to-back partnership, and that can be just sort of a one-off. You can go really deeply and help them build a service business that you become a part of. So how to build a proposal? Well, in the Chrome, what we've observed in the Chrome for Work business is that while we're seeing demand all over the place, we're seeing it in companies large and small across industries, we do see that there's some consistent patterns in terms of the industries that are adopting Chromebook at a faster rate. And it's really because we're meeting mission critical use cases for the industry. So, for example, in retail and hospitality, you'll see that Chrome devices are being used to help onboard staff as they use a device for training new reps, because it's really easy to share, very easily for two workers to work on a device with their own unique login and own unique user ID, and they can hand the device they share the device between each other without risking leaking information. So shift workers is a very good use case. Conversely, what we see, the existing solutions in the industry, typically people are using the Windows device, and typically they're not logging out. That seems to be a consistent pattern in retail, which is scary because when we worked with a particular retailer, they have over 1,000 stores in North America, a very big brand name, and we realized they were using a shared Windows device for their shift workers. This included both employees as well as managers. And they had a case, an example that they told us, where they had a manager had a action with HR. In other words, they had to file a report with HR on a formal complaint between one employee and another. They're using a shared Windows device to send that document to HR. They saved the document to their desktop, or actually they deleted it, but they forgot to empty the trash bin, and another employee accidentally stumbled upon this and exposed what was really a very sensitive issue. And that manager actually suffered disciplinary consequences because of it. And so this happens all too frequently with these sort of shared devices because it's either too difficult and too inconvenient to log out. This example I've referred to, they actually just couldn't log out. None of them had logins for the device. It was just on, and everyone used the same device. So big security risk, and Chrome addresses that very easily by making it really easy to switch profiles. And because every person's identity and all their information and their settings, everything about their profile is encrypted, then there's no risk that two users will be able to see each other's information. And we're also seeing great examples in retail with promotional signage to promote products and replace paper-based signs, as well as using kiosks from everything from customer self-service to employees using it for a design application. Let's say they're using something in connecting to a virtual desktop to AutoCAD, for example. We're also seeing Chrome devices used in professional services, PwC being a great example. We're seeing in healthcare as they'll connect with, say, a Citrix receiver to a healthcare application where they have sort of sensitive information about the patient in the healthcare app, access through Citrix, and as soon as they close the browser, everything is wiped out. There's no profile information at all, and no information saved to the Chromebook. So it can be a really highly secure solution for the mobile worker use case in healthcare, and finance are two great examples of that. We're also seeing it adopted in high tech, much the same way we adopted at Google, using it for video conferencing, shared devices, let's say for call center reps, as we see with Netflix, as well as highly secure devices, particularly for industries where there is it's very sort of sensitive, and they have lots of proprietary information they want to protect. Chromebooks are ideal for that sort of situation. And we're seeing more of this adoption across state, local, and federal government, used for many of the same reasons, particularly when secure access to the cloud becomes a mission-critical criteria. And the use cases for Chrome of shift workers, one of the most common, where you have multiple people using the same device. It could be for things like self-service HR, like time cards and shift scheduling and accessing payroll information, or it could be used for, let's say, call center staff who are using the same device and working in shifts. The knowledge workers, another obvious one, especially for companies that are already using SaaS throughout the business, and they now with Arc++, as we recently announced at Google I/O, you'll have multiple users are able to access or rather, people can now use Chrome devices to access Android apps, and that they don't need to. They can access really any Android app off of the Google Play Store. We're also seeing a lot of adoption with single app kiosk. This is, for example, if you go to a Google office, you'll see there's a guest check-in that uses a Chrome device. We're also seeing this for ordering, for like an ordering kiosk, so people can order products in the store. Also using it for promotional signage, either in-store or what we call out-of-home, which is those areas between locations where people are sort of getting from one place to another, let's say within the mall itself. And internal signage as well. This could be everything from announcements to leaderboards, say the call center being a great example, or sort of leaderboards, let's say on a trading floor. And with conference rooms, there's really 3 different solutions. There's this all-in-one small space, either an office or a phone booth, and that's for sort of say 1 to 2 people. Small rooms up to 8 people, and large rooms for 8 to 20 people. And the solutions there it's really a different bundle for each, and there's additional services that'll go along with that. So what you need to figure out first is what is the device. Now with Chromebox for meetings, you'll find that that's going to be a bundle, but for everything else, it's going to be you're going to need to make your own selection around which is the most appropriate device for that specific use case. For opportunities where they are highly price sensitive, but it's not necessarily a mission critical app, you could probably sell them a Chromebook, and that simply converts an HDMI enabled screen effectively into a Chrome base. In other words, it allows them to attach a Bluetooth keyboard to any HDMI enabled screen, and now you have something that we use for anything from a shared employee device to a kiosk or a sign. With Chrome boxes, that's incredibly versatile in the sense that it can be used for really any use case. Typically, we're seeing that for everything from signage to kiosk to desktop devices. Chromebooks, typically used for either shared devices between employees, or could be a device used as a loaner device. We use it internally as our primary device, and we're seeing a lot of customers do that as well, especially those that are already SaaS-based, or that are using a virtual desktop and are using Chrome devices as a secure way to connect to that virtual desktop. And finally, Chrome-based, it's more the all-in-one desktop computer, also used for kiosks and signs as well, and it's all-in-one in the sense that the ChromeOS is built into the screen, so you don't need to get it's not going to be like sort of a separate screen and a device as you would have with the Chrome box. And device management license, what you can now purchase through the Reseller Console, or you can sell through the Reseller Console. It's bundled with Chrome device for meetings. For all their Chrome device use cases, it's sold separately. And we look at the products and services that will complete a solution. For deployment, that includes white glove service and design services and infrastructure services. For add-on hardware and software with CFM, that'll be a bundle. And in the case of the meeting room and the large meeting room, you'll find that you'll typically need to sell, in addition to the Chrome for Meeting bundle, Chromebox for Meeting bundle, you will also need to sell them a digital display, a high definition display. And there's often going to be additional hardware and peripheral opportunities there. You might sell a third-party VPN solution or maybe third-party SaaS services. And the ongoing support services are going to be, by and large, very similar to what you sell with apps. with the addition of the lifecycle management, as we mentioned. So really, when you look at Chrome, the devices, the opportunity with Chrome devices, it's very, very similar to apps in the sense it's the extension of that transformation story. So typically what we find is that a lot of people that will adopt Chrome devices, they're often already apps customers, and Chrome is just an extension of that transformation story that they've already been through. Then the interesting thing is with Chrome devices, since it really goes beyond apps, right? While Chromebooks for meetings, you'll typically have someone who's using apps already, they're already used to Hangouts. For things like Chrome devices for everyday use, you'll typically find that that could be, especially when you're talking about somebody who's using with Citrix, receiver with so using a virtual desktop, that can really be for any sort of application, right? Because it's typically going to be accessing legacy applications. And you can see that the transformation is going well beyond apps. Since now we're talking about sort of their legacy infrastructure. It could be that now they're trying to shift workers to telecommuting. So they're giving them an easy way to access their corporate systems with a very reliable device that can be managed remotely very easily. It could be they're transforming their customer engagement through kiosks. It could be that you're using Chromebooks for meetings as a way to transform the corporate culture to make them much more collaborative. It's a sort of extension of that transformation story. But you'll find that typically Chrome devices are going to be part of some sort of transformation. Be a customer that is already part of that transformation journey with you with apps, or they're just sort of moving away from legacy infrastructure and some of the pain that they've had with Microsoft in the past. So with that, I'll wrap up the formal presentation, and what I'll do is I'll move to Q&A. So go ahead and you can enter your questions in the chat, and as well I'll check to see if there's anything that you posted within the Google Plus page itself. Okay, don't have any questions so far, so I'll keep this. I'll stay on this for a few more minutes, and go ahead. You can enter your questions in chat. So can you elaborate on how the Chrome management licenses are going to be handled in the Reseller Console? How are renewals handled? So for renewals, you either have the renewals will either be annual or perpetual. So it's going to be two different SKUs. That's one thing to be aware of. We will give you instructions on how the renewal will actually be processed in the management console, rather the Reseller Console. But we'll have a FAQ on Google for Connect that you can access to get more details. There's a question about when it's going to be launched in the South Pacific. We don't have anything yet to announce, unfortunately, about when it's going to be launched. Particularly, it would be helpful if it was more specific on which country you're referring to. But we don't have any information on, generally speaking, the South Pacific. It'd be good to know which country that you're trying to sell. So the message is from Craig. The license which we have sold via Chrome distributors will show in our reseller console. So we'll have more information on the sort of transfer of licenses. The ones that you sold previously, we'll have more information on whether you'll be able to access that to the reseller console. Initially, it'd be your new license that you sell, and we'll have more information on licenses that you will sell that you've sold previously through distributors. Fiji, we don't have any information on, or any plans specifically on launching Chrome devices in Fiji that we're prepared to announce. Okay, I'll keep the line open for any additional questions. Question was whether if you have a local distributor that does not stock particular Chrome devices, is there a workaround where you can get them from projects from a U.S. distributor? Very good question, Stephen. As far as I know, that we would require the local distributor to stock the device. I'm not sure if they're. What I'll do is, if you can send me an email. You can send me an email to rachee@google.com, and I'll see what we can do to help you in situations where you just simply don't have stock locally. So in terms of the Chrome licensing in Australia dollars, don't have anything yet to announce on whether we're going to have that available in Australia dollars like Google Apps. My understanding is it's going to be in US dollars, but we will, if we have anything to announce, that we'll update you through Google Fork. So the question came up around the SKUs available in the console. What you can do is you can go to the Google for Work Connect and look up the Chrome FAQ. We're initially starting with the annual license and the perpetual license. We'll have more information on all the other SKUs. In terms of the price stability issue, Stephen, we don't really have anything. I understand your concern regarding the shift in the Australian dollar versus the US dollar, but we don't have anything announced there. To the question around opportunities in Fiji and other markets like Samoa and Tonga, we don't have anything to share, unfortunately, in terms of releasing that across all these different countries. There's a number of different challenges for launching a device in a new country. You need to make sure that you can deliver, for one thing, and it's not exactly it's not that we can just turn on a country just by saying that now we're in this new country. There's a process to go through. It's not as easy as, say, Google Apps or other products that are software as a service based, because there's hardware involved and there's various customs restrictions we have to deal with. So unfortunately, we don't have anything to announce for Fiji. So So for those of you that are still on the line, if you could hang on, my colleague is going to join. Hopefully he can help address some of these questions.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, hi, you.
Hi.
So one of the questions was whether when Chromebox for meetings was going to be available via Reseller Console.
Oh, Chrome for meetings, right?
Yes.
It's current. We are looking into that currently, and it's in our roadmap. But we don't actually have a timeline that we can actually communicate currently.
Got it. And in terms of what's available today, is this going to be the annual and perpetual licenses, correct?
It's only annual, and
Okay.
also resellers can pay monthly as well. We also have a trial period, but we don't have perpetual yet.
Right.
We have a timeline for that. It's in our roadmap for 2016.
Got it. Got it. Okay, thank you. There's also the question just on whether we had any plans for launching in countries like Fiji and in general in the South Pacific. My understanding is we don't have any plans to announce, and Craig in particular is asking about what is the process behind our decisions on where to launch. And as I was explaining, there's some complexities involved in terms of having to deal with customs and getting a device certified for a particular country. So there's a significant amount of overhead, so we have to choose carefully around which countries we're going to launch in. But do you have any other comments on that?
There are also legal hurdles associated with launching to new countries. I wish as only software it would be easier to launch, but with devices there are more complications associated with that. I think we talked with Craig before. Yeah. I think in GWC and in email. But Craig, feel free to reach out to me. I think we talked before. It's yigit@google.com.
Also, are we planning to have Chrome device management licenses in Australia dollars?
It should. I mean, I need to check, but that should be available. If possible, let me double check and get back to this after the hangout on here.
Got it. Anything? Let's see. And let's see. We already answered the question on what's available. As you said, is annual and license, and they can also pay monthly. What about if someone's already sold through a distributor? Will the licenses that previously sold, will they show up in their console, or it'll just be new licenses? Correct.
That's a good question. That's also one of the things in our roadmap that we are looking into. It won't be possible to transfer in the initial launch, but we are looking into showing that in Reseller Console eventually, so that there's visibility for the orders that went through the distributors.
Got it. How are renewals going to be handled in the Reseller Console?
Exactly same as apps.
It's just the same way as apps. Got it.
Yeah. Whatever you are experiencing today for apps, it will exactly be the same for Chrome.
Also, there's just some issues with Chrome device availability in Linux. Do you have any, in particular in Australia, do you have any comments on that?
That one I don't know. From hardware standpoint, I have no transparency for that.
Got it. All right. I think that's the last of our questions. So how would they license Chromebox for meetings today if they can't get to the resale console? Is the only option through distributors today?
Yes, through distributors.
Yeah.
So currently, what we have as a SKU in Reseller Console is Chrome device management, but we are looking into onboarding the other SKUs, the other products that we have in the Chrome world.
Right. So if they take over as a reseller, will the transfer token bring over their Chrome licenses with the Google Apps licenses?
Yeah, so one of the things that that is important is if you resell Chrome device management through Reseller Console, you also have to resell apps. So you have to manage all the subscriptions for your customer. So short answer is yes. You need to transfer both apps and Chrome device management under your management in Reseller Console. Multi-subscription selling, we are currently exploring that. For example, if you want to just have Chrome device management, but apps as like direct and you don't want to resell apps, we are looking into those scenarios. So if anything that you think that it exists, like we want to understand the use cases a little bit more. So if you think that like these type of scenarios will occur, please feel free to send an email to me, yigit@google.com, yigit@google.com.
Then the question was, do I go through the partner sales tool to license the Chromebooks for meetings?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, any other questions? All right, if there's no other questions, we'll wrap up in a couple minutes. All right. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and have a great night. Thanks to you. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye.
Have a great night.